Welcome to Awakened Motherhood, the podcast where mothers share their powerful stories of healing and empowerment. I am your host, Amanda Quick, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and advocate. In each episode, we dive deep into the stories of mothers who have overcome adversity, found their fierce feminine power, and embraced transformative parenting. Whether you're a mother driven to fight for your children or someone with a story burning inside you, this podcast is for you. Together, we'll explore themes of resilience, self-trust, and healing from our traumatic experiences, all spotlighting the profound journeys of awakened mothers. Join us for a space of naked authenticity, deep inspiration, and genuine connection. Embrace the divine feminine and discover your own warrior mama within. Welcome to Awakened Motherhood, where your story is the spark for change. Welcome, everyone, back to another episode of Awakened Motherhood. I'm your host, Amanda Quick, and today I'm so excited to introduce Katya. Katya was born in the Ukraine. She is a multi-potentialite. Potentialite. I was like, that is not a real word, but that's okay. A multi-potentialite whose diverse passions and life journey inspire her work. She spent the past 6 years writing her memoir, while managing her family's properties, working part-time as a realtor, and transforming a historic ranch on the banks of the Truckee River into an events venue. Katya holds a bachelor's degree in psychology with a minor in biology from the University of Nevada, Reno, and is pursuing her nursing license, a long-held goal. She lives in Reno with her husband, daughter, and 2 cats in a home they built together. In her free time, Katya explores her love for music production, DJing, along with cooking, painting, and entertaining.
Yeah.
My goodness, you have a very full life. And I will put your contact details in the show notes for folks after if they want to get in touch with you. But welcome to the show. I'm very excited to get to know you.
You too, Amanda. We've been chatting before this, and I got to know a lot about you too. So we have this really cool synergy. So I'm excited to record.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, you're writing your memoir, right? That's a lot of, in a sense, what has brought you here. And I know you've had a journey to get here as well. But why don't we just kind of start with wherever the beginning is for you and the person you used to be before all of this unfolded.
Yeah. So it's my memoir. I have written it. It took me 6 years. It's called "I Drank from the Nile," and it's basically a journey of self-destruction yet self-discovery. There's motherhood involved, and breaking generational pain is what eventually I come to realize. So it spans 4 years in 4 countries. Obviously, the title, "The Nile," meaning I was living in Egypt, and then between Egypt, Ukraine, and Portugal, I wrote down my story. In the beginning of it, my life was coming from Reno. I have this stable boyfriend. Everything seems to be going great. We're going to get married one day. I'm hopeful. We've been together for 5 years, but I was harboring a closet painkiller addiction, very high functioning. And I wanted to prove my self-worth to him in a language that he understood, because we traveled a lot together. So I was like, hey, I'm going to move to Cairo, be this independent woman and experience life on my own. And when we come back, we can rekindle our relationship and do this great thing in life and be these worldly people. And that's where I got lost in Egypt, in myself, but eventually made it out. I got married in Egypt. I had a daughter. Turned out to be a very bad decision as far as marriage and living there. And it forced me to kidnap her without my ex-husband's knowledge. So it's about resiliency. It's about rewriting your life. It's about not playing victim, to your traumas and just taking ownership for your mistakes and creating a better future for your children. And a lot of, something that you can relate to, full away.
100%.
Yeah, full away.
Yeah, no. And I mean, when we were, getting to know each other before that and you were kind of sharing some of it, it's quite a story to think about, you're in a country that things don't operate in the same way and you don't have a lot of power and your choices are limited in the sense that you do feel stuck, and you absolutely could have stayed victimized in that situation, and probably for a while did, as we all do, until we have those, kind of, I can't do this anymore moments.
Yeah, it was, I had nowhere. So the decision to kidnap my daughter, I had no money, I had no bank account. I haven't been in the US, no work history, no credit history in 5 years, nowhere to go. But what lied on the other side of fear was the unknown, but I knew it would be better than just to stay here. I was basically left alone with my daughter. She was 10 months old, and my ex-husband left us for another wife, and he was just gaslighting me, the whole thing. It was just terrible. So the hardest part actually was just playing pretend like I'm fine and accepting my situation, but I was planning for months how to get out undetected. His family's very high up in the government. His father is, he's the League of Arab States. He's one of the security people. So he's very well known. And so getting out of even my apartment and how I planned all that. So that's all in my book. And, just getting out and not knowing where to go. It's like, I remember boarding that plane and I never thought what's going to be next. I had a couch to go to my friend's house, and that was it. And I just rebuilt. But my memoir ends right when I arrive back to the United States with my daughter and go through this whole forgiveness thing within myself and others, and just be like, okay, I have all this baggage, I have all this shit, sorry, I got to deal with. Like, how can I not pass this on to my daughter? And that's where I decided to, realize that I have to break this pain, this generational pain that my mom gave to me. And now I can very much give to my daughter. And so I had to just completely start over, mentally, spiritually, physically, and create that safe future for her.
Yeah. Well, then, we talked about, that kind of generational piece, and you're one of the few people I've met that has had this experience where we did the same thing our mom did, like to the literal thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've talked about this on this show in the very beginning as I was telling my story, because my book, also ends once I got full custody and, things like that. And so the almost now 5 years since then, there's been a whole lot of other ahas and unraveling and pieces and healing journey, including the realization that I was repeating my mother's patterns, right? And so you've had that same kind of awareness in yourself. And, what does it look like to you to break those kind of generational, I'm going to call it a curse, because that's truly how it feels.
It's amazing. It scared me at first. I started noticing it when I married an Egyptian man. And my mom married not my father, my sister's father, the American man. He was also, foreign.
Right.
And
a foreign man
that took me to another foreign land. And then I had a daughter, and my mom had my sister, and this whole thing. And I'm like, oh my God. And then even to our wedding day, when we went to just the courthouse in Ukraine with my ex-Egyptian husband, I didn't wear a white dress, and my mother couldn't find a white dress. She wore this purple, hideous one. And I had this like the salmon cream pink one, because it was like kind of last minute. We had a plan, the documents were ready. And so I remember standing there looking in the mirror. I was like, oh my God, I'm not even wearing a white dress like my mom. I write that about, it was like in the back of my mind. I'm like, okay, where's this going to go? Because my mom's story did not end up good. I have to rewrite it. And so when I was found in the position of kidnapping my daughter, which my mom had to take my sister out of the United States to Ukraine under very bad circumstance, literally the exact same thing. I was like, okay, but she's messed up my sisters in my life. I cannot do this to my daughter. So it's weird how it's exactly the same situation. I was like, I don't want to be like her. I don't want to be like her. I got
right. But I'm unconsciously making these choices, even as I start to go, wait, this is weird.
Yeah.
I still keep doing it.
Yeah.
And that's where it feels like it's a curse, because it's almost like we're not actually in control in this sense. And the point, I think, of sharing these stories is to bring awareness, and because we can't change what we don't know. We don't know that we're doing it. We certainly can't change it. But now that we know that we're doing it and we have shifted in some regard, then we can go, do I really want to make that choice?
Yeah.
Do I really want to do that?
Yeah. So when I came back with her, I was like, okay, um, you know, I can't, I can't go back into, obviously, I mean, I quit my pills. That was another part of my journey too, which really helped me clarity. I've been sober actually
Yeah.
10 years. December
Congrats.
27th was 10 years. And so, just being sober and like all these steps that I've taken while I was under the opioid veil,
Mhm.
seemed really foreign to me. But I couldn't get away from them. I was like, okay, I already made these choices, but now looking at it through sober eyes, I'm like, ooh, I shouldn't have made all those choices. And my mother's dealt with alcoholism her whole life. So when I came back here with my daughter, I was like, okay, I can't. I was in the most vulnerable state. I should have been like the victim and be like, oh no, for me, I can go do
Right.
drugs and self-medicate and drink. I was like, no drinking. I enjoy wine time. But in that vulnerable, that first year,
Yeah. You knew you couldn't.
I couldn't because I would just go off the rails. Like I was so scarred, I had to heal myself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's hard.
When people get to this, it's almost like rock bottom is actually before the kidnapping, because it's, that's the helpless place, right?
Yeah.
And then you come out of it, but you're still very, very vulnerable in a lot of ways, and you're taking steps, and you're out, but you don't really feel out. Your body doesn't know you're out, I suspect. I mean, I know I continued to carry my PTSD symptoms for a long while, even though like it was over.
Mm-hmm.
I continued to be hyper vigilant. I continued to check in and do all of that. So what did it look like for you to kind of start to unravel this and to like settle into yourself in a different way?
I was really amazed and almost hated the fact that I was so resilient. It's like I didn't want to be strong. I'm like, God, I gotta really like kick it up. I have to really start over. What did it look like for me? Well, I had fear of, legal repercussions. Like, what is
Yeah.
her father gonna come do?
Yeah.
I realized that, it's just one step at a time. I'm being in that rock bottom. I was like, okay, I can't go any lower unless it's death or, complete drug and gone. My daughter's taken away. That's even lower. So I'm like, okay, I'm pretty far low, but I still have this, and I read a lot about it. It's like this passion for life
Mhm.
and this will to just make it better. So it's like, okay, this is my reality. I had to accept and forgive myself that I was, I made it too. Like I was a participant in making this reality. And if I just blamed him, oh, like he's an asshole, he did this, he did that, that would not.
I mean, this is a really big piece in my story as well. And I think anybody who has pulled themselves out of a dark place, this point you're making right here
ownership,
about
taking on
that ownership of our participation in our traumas. Like, it's not a comfortable place to be. It sucks to say, yeah, I on some level, consciously or not, I chose this. I participated in this. The moment things got weird, I didn't walk away. I didn't set that boundary. I jumped right deeper in fact.
Yeah.
And that for me held immense shame to come to the place where I could say, I chose to participate in this. And I put my kids in danger by doing so.
Yeah.
And I continued this narrative and all the stories around it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for so many people, the unwillingness to face that shame feeling, that guilt that we hold, prevents us from being accountable to our participation in choosing this part.
That's such a key piece to becoming. So that event can either destroy you or make you. But to make you, you have to first acknowledge your participation in it, your wrongs, and then I write about this in my book. Obviously, I had to summarize everything that happened to me 3 years post in a beautiful chapter because you can't keep going. But a lot of people, first they're like, okay, I'll forgive that person. I forgive my mom. I forget, but they forget to forgive themselves.
Yes.
And forgiveness is a huge part of my journey too. I forgave myself for all the times I was wrong, for all the times I didn't value myself, my self-worth. I let other people use me. I consciously wanted them to destroy me for whatever reason. So that, the journey of self-destruction is, really a self-discovery. So taking that ownership, a lot of people just don't. They sweep it under the rug, and then they go on to life, take this onto their kids and tell them like,
Yes.
well, your dad's a piece of shit, So that's why, our life is so bad. And
Right.
that's that next step, what you just said, you got to take ownership of it, because then it becomes your kid's problem.
Correct. Well, and at least for me, and I suspect for you, had I not taken responsibility, I would still be in that mess.
Yeah.
It's actually what got me out, because I realized that my participation in creating the reality we were in meant that the moment I stopped and I started participating in a new reality, I could actually change our actual experience.
Yeah.
There's a empowered choice once we actually take ownership of, and instead of pointing fingers and blaming. And I mean, I had all of the people to blame. I had the system, I had the ex-husband, I had everybody, and people would have justifiably said I was a victim.
Yeah. And I hate it. And I didn't, it's like, I've been the victim, and then being the victim, it's like, and then like you came out with your story, right? Since you are the victim, but in the sense you are, you're the hero in the story, but you got to show the shameful part of yourself to be the hero. And every hero has flaws. And it was really hard for me. I started writing. It was hard for me to open up. So I had a coach, and she's like, I need more emotions. You're writing it from a third person. I'm like, how much do you want to know? She's like, I want to know everything, and then we'll prune it down. And then when I don't know why, I didn't realize, but I can put it under a pen name. She's like, you don't have to use your real name. I was like, oh, that changes everything,
Now I can really tell you.
Wow, I really said everything that happened. And Egypt God, the things I got myself in Egypt due to my drug use was just terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I was involved with men that I was beaten, raped. I was partying my life away. I was, taking drugs, try and find this hero. And so from all that to having a baby and a marriage, so it took me some time to process everything before writing it,
Of course.
And then now I can read it and write it. I don't know if you felt that, but, kind of, was it hard for you to relive it? I knew that I healed when I could write about it and not cry.
For me, the writing process itself, I took 2 years to write my book, but it wasn't 2 years of writing, as you know, right? 6 years isn't active writing. It's the process.
Yeah.
And, it's writing and then setting it down and writing and setting it down.
Yeah.
For me, I had been learning and understanding how energy works in the body and the way all of these things are layered and connected as I was going through all of this writing process. And so I took the writing as a healing tool as well. And so instead of saying, I can't write until I've healed, as I write, if my body is bringing things up that don't feel good, this is my invitation to actually release it. And so if it was easy to write about, then I knew, okay, I've got this part. But if it came up, it wasn't stop. It was, what is here? Where am I still holding on to shame, fear, guilt, stories, etc.? And how can I now move this out of my system so that I can write this book? Because my goal was writing it from like the actual lived experience as I lived it and experienced it. But from a physical standpoint, I'm writing it from somebody who's already overcome it, right?
Wow.
So it's like there's not actually any fear as I'm in it, except what I'm feeling. But that's old fear. That's like past fear now.
Yeah.
Because I've overcome.
Mm-hmm. You had to put yourself in that position. For me, like,
I did.
Yourself in the position when you're being raped. I'm like, can I write that like in 2 months? Like, if this is, it's around the holidays, like, because I'm going to really.
You do. You have to feel it to be there and to put yourself back there. But on a, and so like from a, energetic level, yeah, you got to be there. But if the thing that I realized too, if I can feel safe in my body back there, then I actually have released this from my system. And so
I like that.
Right. And so every moment which did trigger me through the writing process, through the launch process, through taking my story to social media, through all of these things, because I have not received 100% positive feedback. Like I have had people come at me because my story talks about, bailing him out of jail. It talks about abortion. It talks about all of these other very big hot topic things. I continue the relationship with the man for a good couple of years, right? So there's lots of places for people to go, I should lose my kids. I'm just as bad.
Wow.
And they did. And so every time either something came up in me or something came at me, if I felt triggered, if I felt like upset, or I went, there's something in me that believes that they're right, or there's something else here. And so thank you for pointing it out, that there's still something that I need to work on here. And I took that as the invitation to do more work on that specific process, because if somebody just throws something at you that's not true, you just brush it off. You don't even care, right? It's only when we think there's truth to it does it bother us.
Right. Yeah. I put my story out on TikTok, like a part series, and my editor's like, just try TikTok. I'm like, God, I hate that. Sorry, anybody who watches TikTok. I don't watch it. I made the videos and I got pretty good response. But yeah, there was like, first mistake, marrying an Egyptian. I'm like, no,
exactly.
No shit. Like, I know that.
No, we're well aware of this, right? And it's funny. I had people yelling at me about it. And I was like, this was like years ago now that this has already happened. But when people put it on TikTok, they think it's like present tense.
So it's interesting what like triggered in them to like judge. So it's almost,
I know that it's another mirror back to them, but that's not that's your stuff. I'm only taking the invitation. The thing that I also discovered is I responded to all the positive comments and thank you. I didn't respond to the negative ones, but I didn't delete them.
Well, that's good.
I let other people come to my defense because that made the algorithm very happy. Yeah. And so not only did
all of those.
Yes. And so not only did they help me find whatever I was still holding on to, but every time somebody came at me, my videos would blow up.
Yeah.
And so they were actually helping me reach people by coming at me.
But by coming, so you want a discussion, you want negativity. Someone would be like, don't say that to her. And somebody's like, yes,
right. You don't understand trauma bonding. You don't understand this, right? Like I had all of that.
So it's just getting so it's controversial. And that's where my book is very controversial. And gosh, the only people that I actually worry about reading it, which they know I'm right, is my in-law, my ex-mother-in-law, and then the sister. Because they were nice people, in a sense, like we had a good thing going, but still in the end, it's their family. The women are in the wrong. So, I don't talk anything bad about them ever, but it's just, getting it out there is scary, but I'm ready for it. They're like, how could you do this? Why would you do that? Why would you even move to Egypt? Why didn't you leave at this place? Why didn't you leave at this place? Why didn't you get out? Why didn't you? I'm like, I don't know. You're going to have a lot of questions. I have write your own memoir.
Right. This is my life. I'm sharing it. I'm not justifying it. I am sharing it so that other people can read the story. And truly there's, these kind of stories that get buried, we're not the only ones. Yeah. We just are the only ones sitting there talking about it.
And with the TikTok, there was a lady, few people started reaching out like, oh, I'm an Egyptian. I've done it. I'm leaving the States. Like there's women trying to get out, or they've known somebody. I actually met do you know that movie, Not Without My Daughter?
No, I don't. I don't think I know that one.
So it's Beatty White. She basically kidnapped her daughter from Iran, and it's a movie. And there's been a lot of, also criticism about it. And then he wrote the books back. This was in the 90s. So I met actually the neighbor on TikTok of this woman. She's like, she was my neighbor. We had this whole conversation going. Anyways, it's controversial stuff. And, we're just brave enough to show you the human condition. Like you said, like you bailed him out. Like that's human emotions that, we get to experience and tell you about it for free. Like, well, pay and buy our book, but you get to live it and experience it. Yes. And however your life is, like, just wear it for a day. See how it feels. What do you learn? So it's a gift. And then they just will criticize you for sure.
Totally. And totally. And I had to go through that whole process and really ground into, yeah, this is my story. This is my truth. This is what I lived. And this is what I learned from it all. But, when I took my book public, I've probably been on 100 plus podcasts being interviewed. People still reach out to me today and want me on their show. Like I don't seek it out anymore because it's been actually just over 2 years since I published. And so I did a big push in the beginning and now it's, it can only do that for so long.
That's an amazing story too.
Yeah. But I've repeated it and I've shared it and I've been, I've dissected it and I not only wrote it, I took it to the TED stage and I've been interviewed for this upcoming documentary that will come out at some point. Like I've pulled it out of my body in a different way.
Now it's just a thing.
And it's just this story. And I actually feel like by doing this, I've now been able to look at it and go, a beautifully crafted set of experiences that I intimately understand. And that by having that intimate understanding, I actually can help other people feel safe in their beautifully crafted experiences that they're holding a ton of pain around.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you make it out of your body and you let others relate to it. Storytelling is, especially the dark memoir stuff. Dark memoirs are I think it's just noble and brave, not just because we both are doing it, just because it's nobody wants to talk about all the really bad, heavy stuff, but people.
No, they don't. But everybody has some piece of big shame they're sitting in. Everybody. Like society is built on using these feared mechanisms to keep people from speaking out. Like that is the constructs of society. And so when we choose to do differently, it is uncomfortable. Even if it's not something they have judgment about, it's still uncomfortable, And to me, that's the point, is to dig into that discomfort. I also have women coming to me sharing whether they have a partner that was arrested for similar things, whether they've been in abusive relationships, like whatever version of relate they come to. And I've spoken to them personally in times because they're at this kind of point of decision and they feel guilty and they feel the shame and they feel this and they're so afraid to talk to anybody about it. They can't talk to their therapist. They can't talk to anybody. And so because they don't feel seen by anybody and they know all they feel is judgment because that's all they've received.
Right.
And so for them to come to somebody who's not only been there, but come out of it and not sitting there pointing fingers and judging, they start to tell me something and I can name that feeling and I can without shame. This is where you are and that's okay. And let's just own that feeling right now.
Yeah. It's to me, you don't know what kind of people will reach out, but everybody's going to relate on some level. And that's why I did it. And I know that I'm going to piss a lot of people off, but I don't really care because, I had to get permission. I might have to get some NDA or all this stuff or disclosure. But I'm like, well, then write your own. This is my perspective.
Yes.
So the ex-boyfriend that I write about, which is a big catalyst in a lot of my decisions, he's like, just make it fair. Don't make us look bad. I was like, do you know how much I'm making myself look bad? I'm talking about very intimate things. I'm opening up. Nobody knew about my opioid addiction. I was addicted for like 10 years. I was like, did you know? He's like, no. I was like, exactly. I am coming out a lot more with a lot more information. So I'm like,
right. You're really actually pointing the finger here, right?
Me,
You're not.
Yeah, I'm not saying you. This is what but they're still skeptical. I know my ex-husband's probably not going to get a hold of it, but maybe he will. We'll see what he says.
That was a big fear of mine, that he was going to find it and read it and it was going to bring him back into our lives somehow or something like that.
You think he's read it?
I have no idea. I was afraid of it for at first,
Mhm.
but it didn't stop me. It was like a fear I needed to face. I never heard anything from him or any of the family members. One family member who I do not even discuss reached out.
Mm.
Their lawyer did and asked, and they're not in it, so it was irrelevant. But I haven't heard a word. And I also, in my instance at least, his crime is public record. Our divorce is public record. I specifically avoid anything that would not, like anything that would be HIPAA or any other like part of the story that just wouldn't be part of that conversation.
Right.
And I stick to my experience, the way that I felt. I don't project and make assumptions about what he was doing. And so I was very intentional of how I was doing that.
It's such a fine line.
It really is. But
It's like, it was like, and then we're like, no. I felt, you just put in a little bit in there. It's hard. I watched videos. I listened to like lawyers about because I do reveal kind of some medical things that I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just such, and I, even small and petty on his part, he's like, we'll take it out. I'm like, that was the catalyst for me to realize that, I need to go seek
Right. It was an important part of the story.
And I need to and I can't get pregnant and all this stuff. So it's like, that is such a key element. I'm like, I can't take it out. So, but it's
no, I was
hard.
Unless it was a material piece of the story, if it was like a little side component, I left it out, but I really focused on my story and the way I lived it. And, it's been 2 years and, I think at this point, whether he's read it or not, doesn't matter. It's not going anywhere. And, I even put in the acknowledgements. I even speak to him in case he ever does read it.
Wow.
Because in the beginning, it felt like the place where I could say thank you for the final gift of peace. Because by him stepping out, it actually allowed me to heal.
Yeah. And
so I wanted to just, put that there. Don't know if he'll ever see it or read it. Doesn't matter.
It's co-talk.
Exactly. It's me acknowledging that, whether he was doing it unwilling, whatever reason, I still can receive it as a gift for me and for my children to be now able to start over and to do different.
Do your kid ask about him?
Not anymore.
No,
not anymore. In the beginning, yeah. I mean, they went through a loss of a parent. It's still a loss. It took, I wouldn't say super long, but especially once we left the state, that really shifted because the environment, everything changed. Like the first Father's Day was hard, and some of these things were more, noticeable in a sense, but they all know as much as children can understand these
on
things.
their
I have been very
appropriate level, right?
Yes, I've been very honest with them about his choices, his decisions that created this set of circumstances. This isn't about me. This isn't about them. But that this is his illness, his decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they know I wrote a book. They know I gave a TED Talk. They haven't read the book, but my title is very shocking in itself, and so they know that he did bad things and that he was hurting children, and that he wasn't honest, and that they get that part.
Yeah, and it's you gotta make sure they don't that's the hard part. It's take that blame. Oh, your mommy and daddy didn't work out. Well, my case is I couldn't tell her for a long time. I still can't. She's 7. Really, really why I took her out of the country, kidnapped her.
Yeah.
With the story she knows right now. And I'm, the dad's, he's great. I don't ever talk really bad about him. I just said, we fell out of love and, I wanted to live in the United States and he didn't want to. And then she was like, but why? Gosh, you no, there's more to it. I'm not fully ready to, to tell you yet. You're too young. But there will come a day, and I do keep in contact with him. I was like, I can't keep carrying your pain and talking our daughter through it or your mistakes. Cause you're right now you're just this prince on the hill, but she doesn't know what you've done to me, but I put you in such a good light, not because of you, because I want my daughter to grow up not feeling like she's to blame or anyway. So any trauma on that part. So I said, there will come a day where we're going to have to sit down, or you're going to sit down and you're going to talk to her about, what happened. We have to do it, because right now she's creating all these little stories in her head and formulating who her dad is. And I don't want that. And
well, and truthfully for me, so here's the generational piece is that me as a child, my mom fought for custody from us after my dad physically assaulted her.
Mhm.
And I knew that he hit her, but I didn't know about all of the mental and emotional abuse and all of the other things that had happened before, because she kept it from me to protect me. It wasn't appropriate, all the same stuff. Right. And so when she got full custody and he vanished, again, my mom did the same thing that I did in a lot of ways, and he stepped out of our lives. I built a story in my head. And when he wasn't 100% gone like my children's father is, but he had no physical custody. We would see him once or twice a year, if that. But she stayed in the same place, in the same town. And so I would occasionally run into him. I actually found where he was living as I was walking around, like selling tickets for my middle school band. And he answered the door. He was only a couple blocks away. And so basically what happened is that invited him to fill the holes in my story in my mind. And in which case he was the victim. And so his story was, yes, I hit mom and I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
But she made these promises to me, and here's the agreement that I thought we had, and I was supposed to be able to do X, Y, Z, and she's the controlling one, not allowing. Right. So he's putting this story in my mind where she's the bad guy. Like he's taking accountability for his wrongdoing. She's the one not allowing. And so especially as a teenager, right, we're always
rebelling
in that push-pull with our parents anyway. So I made her the bad guy, and I started rebelling against her, and he became the safe person, even though I didn't live with him, even though he was, right, all of the things.
Yeah.
And so I've actually been hypersensitive to this. And instead of protecting my kids, I am radically honest. And I will not let them build a story without filling in those gaps. I may need to speak in language that they understand.
Yeah.
But I had to explain to a 5-year-old essentially about child prostitution without using those words, because a 5-year-old doesn't understand it. But I still needed to do that.
This is, again, taking back to, what we just talked about, being honest with your wrongs in it too.
Yes. Yes.
I did this and I did this thing wrong. And it's just being honest. Motherhood, just good mothers. When we are born, at the same time our babies are born, the good mom has to we sacrifice. We got to transform. We're like, we don't get enough.
It's a complete initiation into a new version of self.
Yeah.
100%.
It really, really changed my outlook on life and the whole, I'm carrying. Now she's going to carry the next generation. It's like, we want sane people in this world. We want good, wholesome people. And it starts with being honest yourself with your kids. Like, I did this and I did that. And even, my parenting style is, where I'm open, loving and everything, but I can be strict. I can be, no, we're not doing that. She can get mad. We get mad at each other. And I'm like, listen, I forgive you. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? Yes. Yeah. We forgive each other, just normal stuff. And I'm loving them, the mom that I became, not coming from the one that I came from. And that's hard. So there's so many things you're carrying. And it's just like, God, can you guys just step up?
Well, and it's also while recognizing we're doing the best we can where we are and having grace for ourselves, but being willing to do better, because it doesn't mean that we were bad before. It just means we didn't have all the information then. And I think we get in our heads that we have to keep doing this because we would be admitting wrong otherwise, when we've learned more and we've realized that we need to do better. And so now we do. And that doesn't make us a bad either. We're just evolving with it, and we're being transparent and honest. My kids are hitting teenagerhood, and oh my God, it's a whole separate, I thought childhood is one thing, but teenagers. Like
I'm not
my
really.
kids are the age, my oldest is now the age when I started rebelling hard. And so I'm feeling all of that from this side now.
Oh my
right?
gosh. I relived it twice.
But I can, and I'm like, I can almost like feel my mom being like, that was what you did. Right?
Look at you. Yeah. Mm.
And I can, he's not the same as me in any way, but there is pieces he's pushing on, and there is, I don't believe the same things that you do, and I don't think this way, that he's very hard lines on. And so for me to say, okay, she was reacting where she was, and this is how I responded, and I don't want my kids to respond like that. But I also can empathize why she acted the way she did, because that's the way she was raised. Like I can see all of that. And there's some like this default version of me that wants to do the same thing.
Right. I know.
Like we can't, it's like, oh my God, I sound like my mother. I can't.
The programming, everything. Like it's just like,
Yes.
and you start to realize your own programming when you become a parent. You're like, I just did what my mom just did. You're not very aware of it until it's happening. So I have to like stop myself. I'm like, we've done that. We're done with them.
But even if you can't do it in the moment, because let's be real, in the moment we're in a heightened state of emotions and we react how we react. But even if we can start to stop and look back and go, I reacted like this with that programming, with these beliefs, with these woundings, but I didn't like how that response is. So what in me is keeping that reaction? And how do I want to work differently? What do I actually want my relationship with my teenage children to look like? And so what needs to change here in me in order to facilitate that? And I'm today, especially because they're older, I can have that conversation with them. Like I can say, I was the kid that reacted this way, and I don't like that I'm doing this. So
but did your mother talk to you like that?
So my mom is now passed. Yeah. She passed away this July. She never, back in my teenage years, she would never, she was very, very emotional, very, very emotionally reactive, very like, this is the way I am. And even if she could see that it wasn't supporting me, she was the victim. It was, I'm a bad mom, or I'm this. And I was like, I'm not taking your guilt trip. And I walked away.
Oh,
so
you wanted,
she did. I was the parentified daughter in a lot of ways. And so since my ex and I split and our all of that, we had done a lot of work over the last 4 or 5 years, because I now had empathy for why she was the way she was with my father. I understood she was trying to protect me, but she was holding a ton of fear and pain around everything that had happened in their relationship, right? I got that. I could feel that, like, right? And so she was doing what she believed was right to keep us safe, even though that meant keeping the truth from us.
Wow.
But I could at least empathize why. So we did a lot of work on, and we really came to a much better place, which was a far cry from my teenage years, after I lived the experiences that she did. And so my goal is to not, right, if I'm not passing on the need to have these horrible experiences to be able to empathize with people, I have to bring all parts of the experience, in a sense, to my kids now and be honest and transparent about what this evolutionary process looks like.
Right. Yeah. It's like we're living their lives, but doing it better.
It's like real time type stuff. You know?
Like, yeah. So it's a journey, and it's good that we're sharing it. Do you sometimes worry that, like, and I do, and I didn't want it. This is what my mother would do. She would not consciously, but subconsciously project the pain that my father put on her because he left her onto me, and kind of, I've been the whipping boy. I mean, I have 3 other sisters, and I'm the least loved one. My mom doesn't like me. It's because I'm the oldest. My youngest, we're 10 years apart. So I just basically, my mom was a kid when she had me. She was 18. So I saw all those sides of her. And so I think she projected, and still to this day, because I've grew up with her, seeing her mistakes, she just, puts on that pain that she's gone through on me. And that's one thing I was like, I can't do that to my daughter. Obviously, I'm a little bit older, but do you feel, because you had your kids when you're young, and they've grown up with you.
They've grown up with me. So for me, my mom, she didn't project the pain of the marriage ending, because if anything, it was a win that the marriage ended in that regard. But she did project the pain of our biggest issue in a lot of cases, at least during my teenage years, was her projecting of the shame she was holding for her choices in her young adult life. And so she had different levels of promiscuity and drug use and all that. I mean, she grew up in the 70s. There was all of that.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't talk about it. She would allude to it, kind of. But she really held a ton of shame and self-judgment about what her choices were that ended up leading her to have these experiences that eventually led her to meet my father, and all of that.
Right.
And her goal, a lot of it, was to protect me so that I didn't go follow her pattern. Now, it actually completely backfired, because 14-year-old me went, I'm a grown-up and I'm going to do what I want.
I'm going out.
And I went off the deep end and started sneaking into my house and seeing boys and all of this. And so every time that she would speak to me, all I could feel was this projected judgment. And at 14, it was about me, right? At 14 is you're rejecting me.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got older, it took me a good 10 plus years for me to go, her projection of shame onto me is actually a reflection of where she still held shame for herself. But a kid's not going to understand that. They don't get that's what's happening. I mean, I remember, I had a marriage before my children's father. I was 17 years old, and it was my way out of my mom's house because I was done. And the reason I even went down that path, because I think I was 16 at the time. My mom knew I was sexually active. She knew I was dating and all the things. Mm-hmm. And I said I wanted him to be able to spend the night. I was open about it.
Right.
I was like, what's happening. Can he stay here?
Yeah.
And she says, not in my house.
Oh, so you're...
And all I heard was, you as a person are not permitted in my house, because I had now embodied this identity that this is who I am. This is what I'm dating. This is what I'm doing. And it was in that moment that I went, I'm no longer welcome here. And I went down the path to figure out how to emancipate. And because he was a Marine, here's marriage papers. And that's the path that I took with that relationship.
I was going to say, emancipated yourself. Yeah.
I emancipated myself to get out of this situation. And later, years later, I actually told her about that. I was like, I remember that moment. And she goes, I don't even remember saying that, but that's what my mother would say to me.
Yeah.
Because if she tried to bring over, they stay with a man she wasn't married to at her house, her mom would say, not in my house.
Not in my house. Yeah.
So it was like that you could see the generational pieces that she didn't even remember was coming out of her mouth that she was passing on to me.
Oh my gosh. And can somebody stop this, please?
We have to stop the insanity.
Somebody stop the insanity. These women, we're all crazy to begin with. Okay, but somebody needs to put an end to it.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's in a lot of ways what you and I are trying to do by exposing it, because what kept my mom from doing different was that shame of, I can't talk about this. I can't share this. No. And I'm not kidding you. It was not till she was on her deathbed did she tell me the stories of her young adult life.
Oh, wow.
She had the awareness that it was time for this to come out. And she did. She told me the long story of everything that she did. And she even would be like, true confessions. She was still holding so much shame about it.
Was it
at 70 some years old?
Was it what you imagined?
It wasn't even as bad as I imagined, to be honest with you.
We're like, out in the woods, we're LSD tripping for weeks.
Come on. She was worried. She was really ashamed of smoking marijuana, which is now legal in most states. She, one of the big shameful ones is that she nursed me one time while smoking marijuana, which isn't even considered that big of a deal anymore. But it was once.
Oh my God.
And
Might be more bad things than that. It's okay.
I mean, there's a whole like
Mhm.
before I was born,
Mhm.
especially. But honestly, like I was far worse than what she was saying.
Right.
But
I thought otherwise. Right. Wow.
and so but that's my point is that projected judgment isn't about the person we're projecting it at in any regard, whether
Right.
it's for writing the book and somebody's responded, whether it's a relationship with our parents or our children.
Right.
If somebody is feeling that projected shame or guilt or you shouldn't, because it is always an invitation back to the person projecting
Yeah.
to go, well, what the heck is this in me?
Yeah. Bottom line is, got to be honest. Be honest with who
Yeah,
you want, with your kids, with the shit that happened, the things that you did, the things that people see
exactly.
you, the bad choices, the bad marriages, it's just like people just don't want to live in the truth. The truth shall set you free.
The
No,
truth shows it. It is cliche and it is accurate.
no, it's so true. With emotions, feelings, all that. So
Yeah. And the truth of your lived experience holds immense power
yeah.
to both heal yourself and
Mhm.
invite other people to be able to speak out and to share, whether they do so publicly or not. It doesn't matter, because as we start to move it and get it out of our systems, we no longer are like bound by this need to repeat it, to keep it hidden.
Yeah, that's the goal. So
Yeah. Amazing.
yeah.
Well, when is your book coming out?
So I had one hybrid proposal from Pegasus, actually,
Okay.
there in Cambridge, but I don't think I mean, I have that I can take, but I'm redoing my book proposal on Monday and sending it out to a
Okay.
couple agents that I really hope will take
Okay.
me. So, if not,
So we don't know yet. It's coming
we
soon.
don't know, but it's this year. I know it's this year. I can self-publish, I can hybrid, but I'm
Yes.
trying my luck with traditional, and if that doesn't go, then no. But on
Okay.
my website, there's my name, katyadunko.com. There's a wait list that you can join. I don't bombard you with a lot of emails, just updates of
Sure.
like, hey, this is where we're at. I'm on Instagram. Just started that. I'm not really good at any really social media, and then TikTok, unless it gets banned here again. But you
Oh,
can find me
I
there
know.
too. So
Okay. Well, I know I'm looking forward to reading it when it does come out.
thank you.
And so
Thank-
I'm sure that there's a whole lot more to the story. And we'll let people read the book when it's time.
It's time. Yeah. Prepare dark and twisted, but that's you're saying, then you're listening to the right podcast. So
Yeah. Well, thank you
thanks,
so much
Amanda.
for your time and your energy. And is there any one last piece of advice you want to leave the listeners with?
Yeah, what I say is, let's say, whatever you're going through, whatever your rock bottom looks like, I always say, like, put your hand on your heart. If it's still beating, you still have a purpose. You still have a way forward, and it will pass. Take a nap. Don't do drugs, and just one day at a time. And I will have hopefully we do come around reading my book. There's 19 chapters of times I could have given up, and you would be like, how the hell did she not give up? So inspire you to do that. So, but awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing your documentary. We're going to stay in touch. Definitely.
Yes, we will definitely stay in touch.
Really
And
happy I met you. So thanks.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for joining us on Awakened Motherhood. I hope today's episode inspired you and offered support for your journey. Remember, your story has the power to ignite change, and your resilience is a testament to your strength as a mother. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Share it with other mothers who might benefit from our stories of empowerment and healing. I invite you to connect with me on social media platforms at Amanda Quick Healing, or visit my website, amandaquickhealing.com, for more information on other ways to work with me. Until next time, keep embracing your divine self and discovering your warrior mama within. Thank you for being part of Awakened Motherhood, where your story is the spark for change.